हरे कृष्णा। नमो विष्णुपदाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्ति वेदांत स्वामिनिति नामिने। नमस्ते सारस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। Hare Krishna. So welcome back to the 6th day of this course, Demystifying Raganuga Bhakti. So I'll do a quick recap of what we have seen. So we have been discussing from this book, Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu, primarily. But as I said before, we are also referring from other books. But the thematic flow is according to Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu, with some additional content from other books like Ragavartma Chandrika, Shuddha Bhakti Chintamani, and Manasiksha, like that. So we have been discussing, yesterday we discussed the second half of the history of Raganuga Sadhana in Gaudiya Vaishnavism. So in this theme, we saw that the purpose of descent of Krishna and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was to actually spread Raga Marga Bhakti Loke Karite Pracharan. They wanted to spread the Raga Bhakti, the kind of Bhakti that is followed by the Vrajavasis of Vrindavan. And therefore Krishna is called as Rasika Shekhara and Parama Karuna. He is called as Parama Karuna because he wanted to spread or distribute the most sweetest kind of love so easily to the most degraded people of this age of Kali Yuga. So, and then we also saw that how historically even what to speak of Srila Prabhupada, even Srila Prabhupada's own guru Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur has been criticized of rejecting the Raga Marga. So, apparently against the wishes and mission of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So therefore, in order to understand whether Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur and in his line Srila Prabhupada, did they actually reject the path of Raganuga? So in order to understand this, we tried to retrace the history back. So we found out, we were trying to understand the internal and external paths as we discussed. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu divided the Raganuga Bhakti into two parts, the Antapanta and Bahirpanta, and how the external path was extremely misused because of its easy to imitate nature, and how over a period of time the Gaudiya Vaishnavas forgot the internal path that was given by Srila Raghunath Das Goswami in his books like Manasiksha that we saw. And because of this severe misuse, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was heavily against this external path or the perverted remnants of that external path which existed when he was there, and it is still there actually. And still these people criticize Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, and in his line the Gaudiya Math and Srila Prabhupada they criticize. But then the problem is, as we saw, we also discussed about the three types of misuse of this external path which led to nasty kinds of perversions in our Gaudiya Vaishnava Parampara. Very unfortunate. So, therefore, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur rejected this kind of perverted remnants of the external path that was being followed during that time by the Babajis, or the so-called Babajis actually. We tried to resolve the controversy. We saw that how actually Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur did not reject the Raganuga path itself, but he had rejected the perverted form of the external path, but while accepting the internal path which was long forgotten by the Gaudiya Vaishnavas as given by Srila Raghunath Das Goswami. So we saw how there was a very close connection between the teachings of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur and actually what Raghunath Das Goswami taught in Manasiksha. So there was a very close connection. especially in his writings, teachings, writings, his letters, and we especially saw that bhajan Vaishnav Ke or Dushtamana Tumi Kishera Vaishnava. So in such kind of writings, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur very clearly emphasizes the path that has been chalked out by Srila Raghunath Das Goswami under the guidance of Srila Swarup Damodar Goswami. So therefore, very much Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur's teachings was in line with the Parampara teachings coming from Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu that we saw. So we also saw the logo of Gaudiya Math, which was personally designed by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur, in which he very much talks about the Raganuga. One side was Vaidhi, the other side was Raganuga. And in his writings also it's very clear that the Vaidhi that is practiced by the Gaudiya Vaishnavas is actually just a precursor to the Raganuga sadhana. When the cleansing of heart happens, when Anartha Nivritti is accomplished, and when one comes to the stage of Nishta or Ruchi, automatically that spontaneous greed to follow in the footsteps of the Vrajavasis awakens. So one need not get impatient and try to prematurely follow that path. That was the emphasis of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. And also we saw that how Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur was himself took initiation from Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj, who was a Babaji, and who is called as Vipralamba Rasambodhe, who is an ocean of the mood of separation from Radha and Krishna. And he learned this Vipralamba Bhava from Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj, and the evidence for this is that he used to sing and write and meditate on various songs written by Srila Raghunath Das Goswami, which indicated this mode of separation. And he also revealed his own personal form as a Manjari, Nayana Mani Manjari, in the spiritual world to some of his very close associates. So, and also his place of bhajan was, he named it as Sri Vrajapatna. So all these things very clearly indicate that Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur was definitely not against the Raganuga path, and he very much followed it himself. What to speak of following, he was a perfected devotee. He was a Manjari. So therefore, what he was actually against was this Siddha Pranali initiation. He was actually not even against Siddha Pranali initiation, but the way in which it existed was a pathetic, perverted remnant of what actually it was when it was introduced by Srila Vakreshwar Pandit to Srila Gopal Guru Goswami. So, therefore, through his writings we saw that he had written a lot about in line with the internal changes which Srila Raghunath Das Goswami had written in the Manas Siksha. So in one of his letter he says, this we saw, that the Ashtakaliya Leela that you heard from the Vaishnavas of Vrindavan, that is right. But my question is, how can such Leela manifest in the heart of a person which is infested with anarthas? Then he says that actually you should understand that by repeated chanting of the holy name, one's heart becomes cleansed, and then when anartha nivritti is accomplished, then automatically the holy name reveals one's swarupa. This is reality. One need not externally try to do this. And then he mentioned that those who try to preach this message, those who say that I will teach you and I will show you what your spiritual form is, he says that these people are cheaters. Because they are trying to give something very, very valuable, so cheap. And what they are giving is not actually real. Then we also saw that by practicing these 5 most potent limbs with diligence, with enthusiasm, with patience and determination, Gradually, over a period of time, with the cleansing of heart, actually one's own Swarupa gets revealed. The holy name reveals it. This is the teaching of Manasiksha. This was the teaching of Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. Okay. So therefore, then we saw, so while don't take the side of criticizing Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, but on the other hand, don't take the other extreme stance also, the ultra conservative approach. The ultra conservative approach that we saw was to think that, oh, Raganuga Bhakti, we have to protect our devotees from Raganuga Bhakti. Let them hear about Raganuga Bhakti after they become liberated from this material world. Like that one may say. But this is also not the teaching of our acharyas. This is just a natural response to the misuse of this Raganuga Bhakti by the so-called Babajis. And any reactionary theory is also not complete. Like for example, at some point, if you trace back the history of how this whole feministic movement started, it was a response to natural exploitation of women by males historically. So when they were exploited and when they were kept submissive, at some point it exploded, and what came out was this whole movement of feminism. But any reactionary movement is not complete reality, and it cannot be a perfect replacement actually. So therefore, it's not statistically also, if you see those countries in which this kind of mood is very prevalent, it's not that the women in those countries are very happy. That is, so you don't have statistical data to support this also. So similarly, the ultra-conservative approach of completely rejecting Raganuga Bhakti, telling that, oh, you speak about Raganuga Bhakti, it will immediately lead to Sahajiyaism. That is also not correct, and that has not been the mood of all acharyas, including Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur and Prabhupada. And we saw from the writings of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur that he says that ignoring Raganuga Bhakti has not made it unimportant. He says that I am not against Raganuga Bhakti, but I am against the false teachers of Raganuga Bhakti. He says, if you try to prevent and discourage people from following it, you are not offering any positive inspiration. Because, and even in ISKCON, there has been a time when it was time and again the misuse was coming up, and institutionally people were banned or stopped from reading anything about it, but it makes the people more and more curious. So there must be, the solution is that we should present the right understanding of Raganuga Bhakti as presented by the acharyas. So this is the solution. So therefore, as an institution, we should not subscribe to any extreme views, rather an well-educated understanding based on the writings of our acharyas like Srila Rupa Goswami is the actual solution for this problem. This is how we discussed about the history of Raganuga Bhakti in our Gaudiya Vaishnava Parampara. Then we started discussing about the practice of Raganuga Bhakti. How Raganuga Bhakti is practiced by those who are qualified for practicing it. In this connection, we started discussing about the 4 elements of practice, primary elements. Krishnam smaran janam chasya preshtam nija samihitam tattat kata rataschasau kuryad vasam vraje sada. So the 4 elements of practice of Raganuga Bhakti are remembrance of Krishna, Krishnam smaran, cha asya preshtam janam smaran, and remembering the associates of Krishna, especially those associates who have a mood which is similar to what the sadhaka is aspiring for. So if the sadhaka is aspiring for the mood of Sakyaras, then he will remember Subal, Sridama, Madhumangal, like that. So Krishnam smaran cha asya preshta janam smaran tattat kataratas chasau. Tattat kataratah. One should be very much attached to hearing about them from books like Srimad Bhagavatam, Kuryad Vasam Vrajesada, and one should as far as possible try to stay in Vrindavan, especially in places where Krishna has performed those pastimes. So this we saw yesterday. And then we saw what is the right kind of meditation for a Raganuga sadhaka. We saw that depending on what he is aspiring for, what mood he is aspiring for, if it is Sakyaras, then he will meditate on Sridama's beautiful form as described in the books by our acharyas, how he jokes, how he tends the cows, how he wrestles with Krishna. These things he hears and tries to cultivate his meditation. Or if one is aspiring for Madhurya Rasa, so then one meditates on the Rupa Manjari, how she assists Radharani and Krishna in various activities like that. But then one may say, can you please tell me, how will I know which Vrajavasi to follow? How will I know which Vrajavasi to follow? We saw, if someone has this question, then that itself is the proof that he is not qualified to practice Raganuga Bhakti. Because one who is actually having the internal qualification to practice Raganuga Bhakti will never ask this question. Because this is an organic, spontaneous development. This greed develops very spontaneously. When the heart becomes purified, and by hearing books like Srimad Bhagavatam, this greed spontaneously develops and one automatically gets attracted to these Vrajavasis, particular Vrajavasis. So therefore when one is thinking, oh, which Vrajavasi should I follow? Which means he is fit for practicing Vaidhi sadhana only right now. He is not yet fit for practicing Raganuga sadhana. This we discussed the other day. And then we also discussed what are the prerequisites for remembering Krishna and the Vrajavasis. We discussed two prerequisites. One is purity of heart and another is suitable knowledge. So if the heart is not pure, then we cannot think of Vrajavasis, we will think of sense gratification only. So which means basically anartha nivritti is a prerequisite. And suitable knowledge we get from the writings of the acharyas, especially the 6 Goswamis. And these two principles very beautifully are presented in these two paragraphs from Narottam Das Thakur's writings. Vishaya chadiya kabe shuddha habe man, kabe hama herabo Shri Vrindavan. When the heart becomes completely purified of all desires for enjoying in this material world, then I can understand the pastimes of Vrindavan, or the conjugal love of Radha and Krishna in Vrindavan. And then he says, Rupa Raghunatha Pade Haibe Akuti Kabe Hama Bhuja Bose Yugala Piriti. When I become eager to read and learn from the books of the 6 Goswamis, then by their instructions, I can properly understand the loving affairs of Radha and Krishna. So therefore, in order to remember these pastimes at the stage of Raganuga Bhakti, one needs purified heart by proper practice of Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti, and then one has to scrutinizingly and with great respect and love study the literatures left behind by our acharyas, including Srila Prabhupada, or especially Srila Prabhupada's books, where he has distilled all this knowledge and presented in a very easily accessible way. So then, naturally, then we have the right subject matter to meditate upon and develop our attraction. And then we saw the last theme that we discussed yesterday was that how this development of attraction to Vrindavan is a gradual thing. First, one develops attraction for a particular mood, say Sakhya Ras or Vatsalya Ras, like that. Then one develops attraction to the devotees in that particular mood. Then the third stage is one develops attraction to one particular devotee amongst all of them. And then he tries to meditate on that devotee's form, pastimes, how he serves Krishna, his mood especially. He meditates on that. And then while meditating in this way, when he reaches the stage of bhava, finally in the fourth stage, he actually receives his own, there is a revelation of his own form in Vrindavan. So at that time he receives his own form. So in this way, gradually, stage by stage, step by step, one progresses in one's path in Raganuga Sadhana. So this is where we ended our discussion yesterday. So today we will continue with our the themes that we have on hand for today. So the sixth theme that we will discuss on this topic of practice of Raganuga Bhakti is that how genuine Raganuga Bhakti cannot be imitated. So, it is mentioned by Srila Shivaram Swami Maharaj in his book Shuddha Bhakti Chintamani. He says, even after cultivating mountains of knowledge, devotees can never remember Krishna or his associates if there is no mental purity. So one may know all the details of practice, but if purity of heart is not there, then one cannot think of Krishna and the Vrajavasis in Vrindavan. Therefore, the mind plays a very essential role in remembrance. Hence in spontaneous practice or in Raganuga Sadhana. So unless we scrutinizingly work on Anartha Nivritti, it is not possible to come to the stage of Raganuga Sadhana. So therefore we cannot imitate. So if we are struggling with basic anarthas, where is the question of practicing Raganuga Sadhana? So therefore it is impossible to imitate. So one who actually knows this reality of Raganuga Sadhana, they understand that one cannot imitate Raganuga Sadhana. So either devotees have control of mind or they do not have. And there is no in between. So therefore this mental control and meditation are pillars of not only Ashtanga Yoga, but they are pillars of practice of Bhakti also. At least the later stages of Bhakti are extremely dependent on this aspect of mental control. So therefore, one who actually understands this science of Raganuga Bhakti understands that it cannot be imitated, and he will not try to imitate it also. There is no point trying to imitate. We are just wasting our time. So now we will go to the next main theme, the next main key verse that Srila Rupa Goswami writes in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, which indicates the internal meditation and the external practice of this Raganuga Sadhaka. What is his internal meditation and what is his external practice? So very famous verse, Srila Rupa Goswami says, Seva sadhaka rupena siddha rupena chatrahi tadbhava lipsuna karya vrajalokanusarataha. So he says that vrajaloka anusarataha, following after the inhabitants of Vrindavan, seva hi karya, one should perform service. How? Sadhaka rupena, siddha rupena. Sadhaka rupena here refers to the physical body, and siddha rupa refers to the form which he is aspiring for. So internally he should meditate on the form in Vrindavan which he is aspiring for, which has been revealed through internal meditation and by the assistance of the Guru. And externally he should perform services just like a Vaidhi Sadhaka only. This will become more clear when we read the explanation. Tad bhava lipsuna, with a desire to attain that bhava on which he is meditating within the heart. So, two practices are given. There is sadhaka rupa seva, which is physically performed, and siddha rupa seva, which is internally performed. So, what are these things? So, Srila Jiva Goswami and Srila Vishnu Jagadhakur explain in their explanations of this verse. So, they say sadhaka rupa refers to the physical body. Okay, and siddha rupa refers to the body which is suitable for one's desired service. As we saw, at some stage, when the anartha nivritti is complete and when one develops this greed, by the holy name reveals that form which is suitable for this person to practice. So that form of practice is called as siddha deha in this context actually. So, what it means is that during the day, for some time, he will do maybe for 8 hours or 10 hours, he will, with his physical body, he will perform activities like hearing, chanting, cleaning the temple, worshipping the deities, everything exactly like a Vaidhi Sadhaka, no difference. Just the internal inspiration is different, that's all. And for 1 or 2 hours a day, he will sit and meditate internally on the form that has been revealed to him by his sincere chanting of the holy name and by the guidance from his Guru. So therefore, someone may be sitting and chanting, deeply absorbed. So you may think that he is chanting of course, but while chanting he may be meditating on the form that has been revealed within his heart. And externally you cannot tell. Externally he is attending Mangalarti with you, he is dancing in Guru Puja with you, he is talking with you normally, he is honoring prasadam with you, he is attending Bhagavatam class with you. So you think he is also just like you, Vaidhi Sadhaka. Need not be. Because externally their activities will be same. So, the Siddha Rupa is given by the Guru or confirmed by the Guru. There are two things. In the external path it is given by the Guru, and in the internal path is revealed by the holy name from within, and the Guru confirms, yes, you are right. You can meditate on this, like that. So even though traditionally it has been, even though it is possible that one may get Sakhya ras, Vatsalya ras, Madhurya ras, any rasa, but traditionally if you see in our line, mostly the Manjari bhav within the Madhurya rasa is only given. Of course, because that's exactly what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to give, and by association one may naturally develop that mood only. Because if one's Guru is in that same mode, then by his close association and inspiration, the disciple may also develop a similar mood. But of course, this is not a rule. Within Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's associates, there were others who were not in the mood of Madhurya also. They were, like for example, Pundarik Vidyanidhi was the incarnation of Vrishabhanu Maharaj. He was not in Madhurya ras, he was mostly in Vatsalya. So therefore, there could be exceptions, but in general, because Jaisa Sang Vaisa Rang, the kind of association you get, that kind of mood one develops. So therefore it's quite possible that most people they will develop a mood similar to their associates with whom they are associating, especially their Guru Maharaj. So therefore, even though other rasas are possible, but mostly the emphasis has been on Madhurya Ras. And as we discussed the other day, this is quite evident from the writings of our Acharyas also. We saw the example of Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu, in which Srila Rupa Goswami has described all the 5 rasas, but he wrote one separate book almost as big as Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu, describing only Madhurya Ras. And also in Jaiva Dharma, a novel written by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. So 2 or 3 chapters maximum, he describes about Shantaras, Dasyaras, Sakyaras, Vatsalyaras. But he dedicates 10 full chapters just to describe Madhurya Ras. So this indicates how the Acharyas have adapted to the mood of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who has specifically come to give the highest rasa that is available in Goloka Vrindavan. So, one serves with a desire for the particular bhava or rati of the associate of Krishna situated in Vraja. So, one tries to aspire for that mood and follow in their footsteps. For example, one should follow after the dear devotees of Krishna such as Radharani, Lalita, Vishaka, Sri Rupa Manjari, and those following after them like Srila Rupa Goswami, Srila Sanatan Goswami, like that. So this is the meaning of Vrajaloka Anusaratah. Vrajaloka Anusaratah does not just refer to Rupa Manjari and Rati Manjari or Lavanga Manjari, but it also refers to Rupa Goswami and Sanatan Goswami. In fact, the inner meaning of this verse is that one should try to follow Rupa Manjari internally and Rupa Goswami externally. The Siddha Rupa Seva or the internal meditation is following Rupa Manjari, but the external Seva is following Rupa Goswami. Accordingly, one should perform mental service in one's Siddha Rupa, following after the examples of Shri Radha, Shri Lalita, Vishaka and Shri Rupa Manjari and others. And in one's physical body, one should perform service following the footsteps of Srila Rupa Goswami, Sanatan Goswami and the other Goswamis of Vrindavan. How they lived their life in an exemplary way. That is the way we should follow. So like that. So, therefore, as we saw, the Siddha Deha is actually, it has to be revealed by one sincere practice in the heart which has been cleansed by that sincere practice of bhakti, especially chanting the holy name. So therefore one cannot imagine a Siddha Deha. Okay. So because this is a gradual revelation and it's a result of prolonged sincere practice of bhakti, and it must be confirmed by a bona fide guru. So therefore imagining, and also this can be confirmed completely, one's form in the spiritual world is confirmed only at the stage of bhava. So at the stage of Raganuga sadhana, the body that we get is only a body which is meant for practicing. Like for practicing, you have practicing gloves when someone is practicing boxing. There is they have practice gloves which looks slightly different from the regular gloves. But for the actual game, for the actual match, a more perfectly fitting gloves and the perfect gloves is used. Similarly, in any other sports also, you have a practice racket or something like that, and then for the actual game, a more perfectly strung racket, a perfectly suited racket that is used. So similarly, in Raga, I mean I am not really comparing playing cricket with Raganuga Bhakti, but just for an example. So at the stage of Raganuga Bhakti, the form that is given is a form that is suitable, that is more or less similar to the form that we might get when we achieve perfection, but it is not exactly the same. So it is called even though it is called Siddha Deha, but it is not exactly Siddha, but it is a body meant for practicing only, practicing that mood. Like for example, when a daughter is growing up, and she wants to buy, so till now she has not been wearing sari because she was a small girl. So now that she has grown up, she wants to buy saris on her own, but first she will try her own mother's sari. She will wear her mother's sari for a few days, few weeks, and when she feels perfectly comfortable, then she might purchase a sari on her own. So similarly, at the stage of Raganuga Sadhana, the holy name reveals a form, and also this is confirmed by the Guru, and this form that one meditates upon internally is a practice form. It is not his perfected form. His perfected form is received at the stage of Bhava only. So therefore one cannot imagine any form like that, because it is an offense to imagine such forms like that. And if one imagines that form and thinks that, oh, this is my actual form, then the actual dormant prema within his heart is actually covered. And it becomes more complicated. Such a person, for him to progress and actually receive his real form becomes almost impossible because of such an offensive mentality. And an example for this is given from the life of Srila Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj. Srila Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj, even though was such a Vairagya Murti, he was completely renounced from any desire for name, fame, etc. But actually, as they say in Hindi, Pratishta Nari Sada Kumari, it is mentioned. So, this Pratishta Nari, or the woman of fame, she is personified in the form of a woman, Pratishta Nari. She always remains unmarried only. Because one who runs behind her, she does not like them. She runs away from them. And those people whom she likes, they run away from her. So Pratishta Nari Sada Kumari, like that. So she runs after those who are detached from her. So even though Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj was Sakshat Vairagya Murti, completely detached from any kinds of sense gratification or desire for fame, but she would always come, and he became very famous as a very renounced Babaji. And another person, he wanted to become similarly famous because he saw that many people were coming to meet Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj. In order to attract some crowd for himself, he actually built a bhajan kutir near Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj's bhajan kutir, and he started staying there, and he would day and night he would cry loudly, artificially of course. He would cry very loudly, imitating the sounds of ecstasy of a person who has reached the stage of prema. And one day, Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj all the while was feeling great pity upon him. So he called him one day and he told him, look, let me give you an example. Once there was a barren woman means who cannot conceive a child. She saw a few deliveries where other women were giving birth to a child. So she saw that just before giving birth to the child, the woman screamed very loudly because of pain, labor pain. So this barren woman thought that if I also scream very loudly, maybe child will come out of me also. So she started screaming loudly again and again, but no child came out. So Srila Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj was trying to explain to him, crying and other such ecstatic symptoms are a byproduct of love. You cannot get love by faking these symptoms. So therefore he told him that don't act like this barren woman who stupidly thought that if I scream, child will come out. Similarly, if you scream and cry like this, Krishna Prem will not come. Only some cheap adoration will come and you will go to hell because of that. So he said, try to practice the path of devotional service diligently, without imitation, without this desire for fame and prestige. And then one day when the heart becomes purified, automatically your sincere practice will reveal your true form in the spiritual world. Then automatically those symptoms will manifest within the heart. And then you will genuinely cry for Krishna. Or as Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur says, that these artificial tears will wipe away the ultimate conclusions of the Shastras actually. These are the biggest obstacles to progressing in devotional service, like that. So therefore, in conclusion, there is actually no amount of imagination can cause the fruit of perfection to ripen. Like in today's day and age, we have artificial ripening process. There is no way of artificially ripening one's spiritual development. It has to organically develop. And for that you need Krishna's mercy. And Krishna's mercy can be attracted by one's sincere endeavor. So, therefore, if one sincerely serves and surrenders to Guru and Krishna, then automatically by that kind of sincere service, surrender and practice of Krishna consciousness, one's heart becomes cleansed and one becomes qualified. So, this verse which Rupa Goswami has written, Seva sadhaka rupena siddha rupena chatrahi tad bhava lipsuna karya vrajalokanu. Literally when translated, this verse means one should seva sadhaka rupena siddha rupena chatrahi tad bhava lipsuna karya vrajalokanu. Literally translated, this verse means that one should serve the Vrajavasis internally using the Siddha Deha and externally using the physical body, trying to aspire for their mood. So, Srila Jiva Goswami says, internally one should follow the Vrajavasis and externally one should follow the associates of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu like Rupa Goswami, Sanatana Goswami, etc. This is Jiva Goswami's explanation. But these other Sahajiyas, they say, no, Jiva Goswami's interpretation is wrong. Here nowhere Rupa Goswami says that internally you meditate on Lalita Vishaka and externally you meditate, you follow Rupa Goswami, Sanatana Goswami. Where is it given? So Jiva Goswami is just misinterpreting this. So they accused even Jiva Goswami of that. So this happened during the time of Jiva Goswami. What to speak of now? They didn't spare even Jiva Goswami. Well, Jiva Goswami was the one who assisted Srila Rupa Goswami for 17 years to compile this Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. So who knows better, Srila Jiva Goswami or these fake Babajis, Sahajiya Babajis? So therefore, certain pseudo Vaishnavas interpret the verse under discussion to mean that a sadhaka should follow the activities of the Vrajavasis externally as well as internally. So what do? They dress like women. They wear ornaments like women and do the most abominable things. So even now if you go to places like Puri, Vrindavan and such places, you will see many such people roaming around. Men dressed like women, dancing and doing all sorts of such things. But this is not recommended by Jiva Goswami. Jiva Goswami is very clear in his presentation. For example, a man will dress as a gopi and feign the voice and mannerisms of a young girl. He will speak, he will try to speak in the voice of a girl. He will act like a girl. He will become bashful like a girl. Most disgusting things. So, other pseudo Vaishnavas remain in the, and there are other kinds of Sahajiyas who may wear dhoti kurta only, but they will think that, oh, I need not follow the regular practices of a Vaidhi sadhaka. So this is the second misinterpretation. First misinterpretation is internally and externally they try to act like gopis, even though they may be males. The second kind of misinterpretation is like that. They will dress like a male only, but they will neglect the limbs, basic limbs of chanting, hearing. These they will neglect and they will just keep hearing some Vrajakatha. They may not chant stipulated rounds. While Rupa Goswami, Sanatan Goswami and the 6 Goswamis, they were perfected devotees. They were chanting stipulated number of rounds in their beads. Sankhya Purvaka Namagana Natibi Kala Vasani Kritau Nidrahara Viharakadi Vijitau Chatyanta Dinau Chayau. It is mentioned about them. Sankhya Purvaka, how many rounds they chant, how many number of obeisances they offer. They were counting it and doing it. But these Sahajiyas, they think that they have become greater than the Goswamis also, that they don't have to count their chanting. And they don't have to follow the regulative principles which are meant for the Vaidhi sadhakas. They think, oh, it is just for the Vaidhi sadhakas. We are more advanced. We don't have to practice all that. They think like that. And this happened even during the time of Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. So there was a very exalted Vaishnavi by the name Hemalata Thakurani. And a disciple of this Hemalata Thakurani, his name was Rupa Kaviraj. And this Rupa Kaviraj, because of committing lot of Vaishnava offenses, he became a deviant. And this Rupa Kaviraj started propagating improper understanding of the Siddhanta. So he said that, did the gopis follow Ekadashi Vrata? Did the gopis have a guru? So why do we have to accept guru? Why do we have to follow Ekadashi Vrata? We are practitioners of Raganuga Bhakti given by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So, because ultimately Rupa Goswami himself says, Seva sadhaka rupena siddha rupena chatrahi tad bhava lipsuna karya vrajalokanusarataha. One should follow the Vrajavasis both internally and externally. So externally none of the Vrajavasis actually performed Ekadashi Vrata. They never worshipped Shalagram Shila. They never worshipped Tulsi Maharani. They never accepted a guru. So we also don't have to do that. But this was not the recommendation of the 6 Goswamis, because the 6 Goswamis themselves did all these things. Gopal Bhatta Goswami personally walked all the way from Vrindavan to Muktinath to the Gandaki river to get Shaligram Shilas so that he can worship. Every single Goswami temple has either Govardhan Shila or Shaligram Shila. Tulsi was worshipped by everyone. They didn't just have a guru, but their Guru Nishtha was unparalleled. Their surrender and their service to the Guru was unparalleled. So therefore, these kind of deviant understandings are a natural consequence of improper association and thereby developing an offensive attitude. So eventually what happened? Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur he drove this Rup Kaviraj out of Vrindavan, and later this Rup Kaviraj developed leprosy and he died. So therefore, one should be very careful to understand that these kind of sahajiya misinterpretation should be not accepted. So therefore, the means of understanding any scripture is through the explanations given by bona fide acharyas. We cannot independently read the book and understand. We need guidance. And these acharyas are not ordinary people. They are not, when they are writing the commentaries, they are not writing their opinions. We may write our opinions or our understanding, whereas these acharyas are great personalities. In their heart, Krishna naturally reveals the meaning of these verses. They have what is called as Leela Spurti. When they are writing a commentary on Bhagavatam, Krishna reveals that pastime in their heart. They can see that pastime. Not only that, they have access to the heart of the devotees who are participating in that pastime. For example, when Dhruva Maharaj is performing a pastime, as given in Bhagavatam, when Dhruva Maharaj performs a particular activity, these acharyas can read the heart of Dhruva Maharaj. Why he is doing what he is doing. They have been given access not just to the pastime, but to the heart of the characters who are participating in that pastime. So no ordinary devotee can claim. So therefore, to write a commentary is not a joke. Ordinary people cannot write commentaries. Ordinary people, ordinary devotees with great respect and reverence can read the commentaries and try to understand them and pray to understand those commentaries. So a fertile brain, a fertile imagination, a fertile intelligence is not a prerequisite to write a commentary. One has to have the qualification for that. So ordinary people, the regular devotees, they are not, it is not that everyone can write a commentary. A commentary is reserved for the acharyas. They can write commentaries because they are so advanced. Krishna reveals in their heart the true meaning of that pastime, like that. So therefore, Jiva Goswami very clearly mentions in his commentary, Vrajalokastu atra Krishna preshta janas tad anugatascha tad anusaratah. Vrajaloka means those dear to Krishna, like Radharani, Lalita Devi, Vishaka Devi, etc. And persons following after them, like Rupa Goswami, Sanatan Goswami, Raghunath Das Goswami, like that. So one should follow in their footsteps. So therefore, we should be very careful to avoid this sahajiya misinterpretation of this particular verse and start dressing in ridiculous ways and try to imitate such things like that. So now, if this is the improper application of this external and internal practice, what is the right application? Especially in relevance to our current day ISKCON, what is the right understanding of how, let's say if I become qualified for Raganuga Bhakti one day, how do I practice my internal path? How do I perform the internal practice and how do I perform the external practice? This we need to understand. So externally, devotees qualified for Raganuga Bhakti follow the examples of sadhakas, the sadhaka forms of the eternal residents of Vraja. The sadhaka forms of the eternal residents of Vraja are Rupa Goswami. So now, so sadhaka Rupa refers to their forms in Chaitanya Leela, and Siddha Rupa refers to their forms in Krishna Leela. Like for example, sadhaka Rupa is Rupa Goswami, Siddha Rupa is Rupa Manjari. Sadhaka Rupa is Sanatan Goswami, and Siddha Rupa is Lavanga Manjari. Sadhaka Rupa is Ramananda Rai. Siddha Rupa is Lalita Sakhi. Like that. So one should understand like that. So that does not mean that Swarup Damodar Goswami, Rupa Goswami, Sanatan Goswami, they are sadhakas. They are not sadhakas. They are perfected devotees. We will discuss about this point little later. So externally we have to follow in the footsteps of these acharyas who come in the pastime of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, whereas the internal meditation can be on that Vrajavasi. It may be Lalita Devi or Vishaka Devi or Rupa Manjari or Sridama or Subal, like that. So Gaudiya Vaishnavas follow the example of Rupa Manjari, Rupa Goswami, which is the sadhaka form of Rupa Manjari. So therefore they are called as Rupanugas. So what does it mean to meditate on, to follow Rupa Goswami or meditate on Rupa Goswami? In Chaitanya Charitamrit and other such books, lot of details are mentioned about mentioned about Rupa Goswami. So how he wrote so many literatures, his literary achievements, his dedication to Lord Chaitanya, how he excavated many pastime places in Vrindavan, and then how he understood the heart of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. When Chaitanya Mahaprabhu during Rath Yatra sang a song which looked like some mundane song, Rupa Goswami wrote the inner meaning of that song and put it in the thatched hut of Rupa Goswami. And when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came and saw, he was so happy. He was wondering, how did this Rupa Goswami understand my heart? Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam. So these are the various glorious aspects of Rupa Goswami, and how with great fondness Chaitanya Mahaprabhu used to call Srila Rupa Goswami and ask him to narrate what he has written to the assembled Vaishnavas, and how he used to take great pleasure in all the Vaishnavas glorifying Srila Rupa Goswami. He would, with great earnestness and feeling, he would request the Vaishnavas to bless Rupa Goswami. There are wonderful such pastimes. How personally he took Srila Rupa Goswami to the Dashashvamedha Ghat in Prayag and taught him the Bhakti Siddhanta about the details of rasa, and empowered him to become the stalwart acharya in Gaudiya Vaishnava Parampara. Everything is discussed in great detail in books like Chaitanya Charitamrita, Chaitanya Bhagavat and other such literatures. So devotees should take great interest and pleasure in reading about these activities and lives of Rupa Goswami, as mentioned here, while simultaneously internally they can hear and meditate on the pastimes of Rupa Manjari in the spiritual world also. And especially members of ISKCON, they should accept Srila Prabhupada also as an eternal resident. Srila Prabhupada is also an eternal resident. So there is so much literature. Historically, if you see, there is no personality in this whole world about whom more biographies have been written compared to Srila Prabhupada. In fact, if you see, if you take only the number of biographical works written by just Srila Satswarup Das Goswami Maharaj, even that many books, no other personality in this world, there have been more biographies written about him. There are more than probably 200 biographies written about Prabhupada by various disciples. So therefore, to be a member of ISKCON means to be absorbed in Prabhupada's personal qualities, compassion, preaching spirit, unparalleled achievements, his literary accomplishments. There are so many aspects and facets of Prabhupada's life which can be meditated upon. So, is there shortage of material? So many, practically every Prabhupada disciple has written a book about Prabhupada. So, or if they have not written, then they have so much to share about Prabhupada. Maybe they didn't have the ability to write, but they have spoken about Prabhupada. There are so many tapes, CDs, videos that have been recorded by devotees like Siddhanta Prabhu, Yadubar Prabhu. So many such things that have been, videos have been recorded about Srila Prabhupada's pastimes, their personal experiences with Prabhupada. Apart from that, his recorded lectures, conversations, letter correspondence. It's a lifetime's project. If you just sit and read all of Prabhupada's biographies, what he has written, it's a lifetime project actually. And still devotees are continuing to write about Prabhupada. His followers may hear these instructions to remain fully connected to him and in order to cultivate their desire to follow in his footsteps. In this way, ISKCON's members can practice remembering one of Lord Chaitanya's confidential associates, who is Srila Prabhupada. So this is internal and external practice. So now, because we have used these two terminologies, Sadhaka Rupa and Siddha Rupa, there needs to be clarification. We have already clarified. We already discussed. But still, we will read through the words of Srila Shivaram Swami Maharaj here. He says, the term Sadhaka in this verse under discussion needs to be clarified. So as we discuss, Sadhaka Rupa is Rupa Goswami, Siddha Rupa is Rupa Manjari. Generally, we use these terms Sadhaka and Siddha in terms of practitioner and perfected person. So if you take Sadhaka, if you take that meaning of Sadhaka Rupa, then it would mean that Rupa Goswami is a practitioner, he is not a perfected person. But that is not the way in which Sadhaka is used. The word Sadhaka Rupa refers to those personalities who participated in Chaitanya Leela to show the sadhakas how they can practice and perfect their life. That is why they are called as Sadhaka Rupa. Otherwise, Rupa Goswami's form is perfect. Lord Chaitanya and his associates like Rupa Goswami appear as practicing Vaishnavas in order to taste the bliss of service and separation. So they may not be personally having pastimes with Krishna, but they may not be having pastimes with Krishna, but Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Krishna himself. Sri Krishna Chaitanya Radha Krishna Nahi Anya. So therefore, and moreover, here Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur mentions, Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur mentions in his writings in Jaiva Dharma and other such works, that the associates of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu have two parallel forms. In the spiritual world, one half is Goloka Vrindavan and the other half is Navadvip or Shvetadvip. So Rupa Goswami parallelly exists as Rupa Goswami in Shvetadvip, assisting Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in his pastimes there. And he is also there as Rupa Manjari in the spiritual world, assisting Radharani, Lalita, Vishaka in their service towards Krishna. So therefore, therefore, both are perfected forms, but for clarity purpose, for ease of understanding, the form in Navadvip, the form of Rupa Goswami is called as Sadhaka Rupa, and the form of Rupa Manjari is called as Siddha Rupa for ease of understanding, that's all. In other words, both the Sadhaka Rupa, Rupa Goswami, Sanatan Goswami, Raghunath Das Goswami, etc., and the Siddha Rupa, Rupa Manjari, Lavanga Manjari, Lalita Devi, Vishaka Devi, all these are eternal associates of the Supreme Lord. They are perfected forms, just in two different modes, that's all. Like that. Both are perfect, both are Siddha, perfect. So one should not consider them to be temporary form. The temporary Rupa Goswami's form is temporary, Rupa Manjari's form is eternal. No, this is not the right understanding. Both Rupa Goswami and Rupa Manjari are eternal associates of the Supreme Lord in two slightly different moods, that's all. Rather, to accept and understand in this way is very favorable for our progress in Krishna consciousness. As Srila Narottam Das Thakur sings in one of his bhajans, Gaurangera Sangi Gane Nitya Siddha Kari Mane Sejaye Vrajendra Sutapash Shri Gauda Mandala Bhumi Yeba Jani Chintamani Tara Hai Vraja Bhumi Vas. So he says, Gaurangera Sangi Gane Nitya Siddha Kari Mane Sejaye Vrajendra Sutapash. One who accepts the associates of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Gaurangera Sangigane Nitya Siddha Karimane, one who accepts them also as eternally perfected devotees. Sejai Vrajendra Sutapash. Such a person gets the qualification for an intimate association with Krishna. Shri Gauda Mandala Bhumi Yebajani Chintamani. And one who accepts the birthplace of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the place where he has performed his childhood pastimes, to be non-different from Vrindavan, as a land of touchstones, Chintamani. Tarahaya Vrajabhumi Vas. Only such a person can gain entrance into the actual Goloka Vrindavan. So therefore, we do not think that Rupa Goswami, Sanatan Goswami are just practitioners. They are not practitioners. They are perfected Nitya Siddha devotees. So therefore, this is a small clarification on the terminologies of Sadhaka Rupa and Siddha Rupa. Because these are little confusing terminologies, therefore the clarification is given. Then, as we saw before, a clarification is coming here again, that externally, the limbs practiced by the Raganuga sadhakas are the same as the limbs practiced by Vaidhi sadhakas. That is why Vaidhi sadhana is a long description. Why? Because the 64 limbs are mentioned in Vaidhi sadhana section. But comparatively, the Raganuga sadhana section is small. Why? The 64 limbs are not mentioned. Why they are not mentioned? Because the same 64 limbs need to be practiced in Raganuga sadhana also. That is why. The only difference is, where is the inspiration coming from? Because these very same 64 limbs are practiced by the Vrajavasis also, and perfected devotees like Rupa Goswami, Sanatan Goswami also. Therefore, the Raganuga sadhaka also gets natural impetus to practice these 64 limbs, following in their footsteps. Therefore, the impetus is different, whereas the limbs are the same. Srila Rupa Goswami says, Shravanot Kirtanadini Vaida Bhakti Uditani tu Yani Angani cha Tanyatra Vignayani Manishibihi. Manishibihi, intelligent sadhakas, Tani tu Angani Yani Vaida Bhakti Uditani. They should accept those very same angas which were mentioned in the section on Vaidhi sadhana, such as Shravana Utkirtana Adini, Shravana Kirtana Smarana Pada Sevana, etc. Those very same limbs should be accepted by the Raganuga sadhakas also as the angas of Raganuga Bhakti. So that is why externally you cannot tell who is practicing Vaidhi sadhana, who is practicing Raganuga sadhana. Along with hearing and chanting, items such as surrendering to the lotus feet of the Guru should also be accepted as favorable. Without these favorable items, how can one accomplish following after the eternal inhabitants of Vraja? So if one does not follow these limbs, but still think that we will follow the Vrajavasis, but the Vrajavasis themselves follow hearing, chanting, remembering, surrendering everything to Krishna. All these 64 limbs are followed by the Vrajavasis also. After considering with intelligence, one should select activities conducive to one's own sentiments for Krishna and not those activities which are contrary to one's sentiments. But there is one small clarification that is given here. Amongst those 64 limbs, within some limbs like Archana, there are some elements of Archanam practice which are suitable for Vaidhi Sadhaka but which are not suitable for Raganuga Sadhakas. Like for example, worship of Krishna and Rukmini in Dwaraka may be mentioned in some aspects of deity worship. A Vaidhi Sadhaka cannot neglect it, he has to follow. But a Raganuga practitioner should not follow it because it is not suitable for the mode he is trying to cultivate. So like that in many other kinds of, and in hearing also, a Raganuga Sadhaka may be little more choosy in hearing. He may choose to hear those aspects of Vrajalila which may be suitable for his mood only, and he may not extensively hear other pastimes. So in this way, some limbs can be neglected or some aspects of some limbs can be neglected by the Raganuga Sadhaka if it is not suitable to his mood or if it is opposing to his mood. So now let's try to understand a few examples. What is a Raganuga Sadhaka's approach to the process of hearing, Shravanam? What is his approach? First thing is, as we saw, they do not give up the limbs, they follow all the limbs. But they may spend more time hearing particular topics that nourish their own serving mood. Like for example, they may hear Krishna Leela, but within Krishna Leela, they may hear Krishna's Pauganda Leela with his friends, more specifically. Because maybe they are aspiring for Sakyaras, and hearing those pastimes will nourish their mood more. So they may more predominantly hear that kind of Leela. So they do not, in principle, they do not give up hearing, but that hearing takes a more specific shape. Like for example, it is quite natural. When we are in our 6th grade, 7th grade, we study science, social science, mathematics, everything. Economics, civics, so many things are there. But then when we go higher and higher, when we come to our 11th and 12th grade, when we take science stream, then we won't study economics, we won't study social studies, we won't study history, geography, etc. We will focus on physics, chemistry, biology, mathematics, like that. And still when we progress little more, let's say when we take up to BSc Physics, then we will study various aspects of physics. We may only briefly study chemistry and mathematics. We will not study biology also. What to speak of studying language, social studies and other such things. So the principle of studying, the principle of writing exam, the principle of performing some practical experiments, those principles are same in the 8th grade or 10th grade or 12th grade or BSc Physics. These principles are same. Studying is same. Writing exams is same. Performing experiments is same. Attending school or college is same. Respecting the teachers is same. But you see, certain subjects can be skipped or they are skipped and they have to be skipped. It becomes more and more specific. Similarly in spiritual life also, when one moves from Vaidhi Sadhana to Raganuga Sadhana, all the activities in principle are followed, but then it takes a more specific shape. Devotees attracted to the loving exchanges between Krishna and the cowherd boys read books describing the Gopas. Whereas devotees attracted to the Madhurya Ras, they may read the pastimes of Krishna with the gopis. So, at the same time, devotees rejoicing in hearing Krishna's pastimes with all the Vrajavasis despite their own aspirations to become followers. So that does not mean they have a unfavorable mood towards hearing other pastimes. They may, like for example, when we are honoring prasadam, we will take all the items, but one particular item which we may like more, we may take second serving or third serving of that particular item. But that does not mean we reject all the other items and eat only that item. So similarly, here also, a Raganuga sadhaka who may be aspiring for a particular mood, he will not reject hearing about the other pastimes. In fact, for example, let's see the writing. For one example, we will take the example of Rupa Goswami's writing. Even though Rupa Goswami is Rupa Manjari, who is in Madhurya Bhav towards Krishna, but in his writings he glorifies Sakyaras also. Like for example, in one of his books by the name Utkalika Vallari, he says, Subala Vallava Varaya Kumarayor Daita Narmasakastvam Asivraje Iti Tayoho Purato Viduram Janam Kshanam Amum Kripayadya Nivedaya. He says, O Subal, you are the intimate friend of the son and daughter of the best of the Gopas and Vraja. So he is the intimate friend of Krishna and Radharani. Please be merciful and introduce this unhappy person to your two friends. So here is Rupa Goswami, who is in the mood of conjugal love, actually requesting for the mercy of Subal, who is in Sakyaras. So therefore, even though their predominant meditation may be on those pastimes and those associates who are in the same mood, but it is not that they have a disrespecting attitude towards other practitioners or the other associates of the Supreme Lord, like that. So this was Raganuga practitioners' approach to hearing. So the essence of hearing is there, but that hearing may take a more specific shape. Now, what is the Raganuga sadhaka's approach to deity worship? Does he worship deity at all? Or is deity worship only for Vaidhi sadhakas and not for Raganuga sadhakas? Is it like that? So, even though prescribed in the scriptures, they naturally give up activities of deity worship such as worshipping Rukmini, meditation on Dwaraka, performing mudras and nyasas, like that. So these are specifically meant for Vaidhi sadhakas. They perform certain mudras and they perform certain nyasas for purification of the body. So those aspects of deity worship need not be performed by one who has become qualified for practicing Raganuga sadhana. Okay. Otherwise, the worship of the Supreme Lord is always there. In fact, elsewhere Srila Rupa Goswami mentions that worship of Vaidhi sadhakas, deity worship of Vaidhi sadhakas is considered as archanam, whereas deity worship of Raganuga sadhakas is considered to be on the platform of smaranam. So it's a favorable remembrance. So they approach the deity in a mood that they are trying to cultivate through hearing these pastimes of Radha and Krishna from Srimad Bhagavatam. So their mood in worship changes along with their increasing absorption in Vraja Bhakti. So their mood changes more and more. It becomes little more intimate and personal, and certain regulative aspects of deity worship they may not necessarily follow, and they are not expected to follow also. So, for example, instead of thinking how to dress the deities of Radha and Krishna according to the rules of Archana, they may dress them while thinking about how the Vrajavasis dress the deities. So they also dress the deities. But for the rules of dressing the deities, they may not necessarily take inspiration from the Archana Paddhati, which may give particular rules, but they may take inspiration from how the Vrajavasis would dress Radha and Krishna. But that does not mean that they concoct new methods for dressing Radha and Krishna, because the way Radha and Krishna are dressed in Vrindavan, in many of the books there is an elaborate description of that, and they may develop inspiration based on those descriptions, and they may dress the Supreme Lord in that particular way. So definitely it does not mean that they concoct different new ways of dressing Radha and Krishna. And as we saw that some of the limbs of Vaidhi sadhana can be neglected by Raganuga sadhakas. Is there any proof for this? Do the Shastras recommend that Raganuga sadhakas can actually neglect some limbs of Vaidhi sadhana? So Srila Rupa Goswami quotes, like for example, we saw the example of how they can neglect to perform worship Radha and Krishna in Krishna and Rukmini in Dwaraka, like that, or meditation on Dwaraka, which may not necessarily be conducive for their aspiration. So he quotes this verse from the 11th canto, Teachings of the Navayogendras to Nimi Maharaj, where the Navayogendras say, Yanastaya naro rajan na pramadyeta karhichid dhavan nimilyava netre na skalenna padediha. They say, my dear Nimi Maharaj, this path that I have created, na pramadyeta karhichit, one who sincerely takes up to this path can never commit any blunder on this path. Dhavan nimilyava netre naskalenna padediha. Even if he runs with his eyes closed on this path of bhakti, he will not slip or fall down. Elsewhere in the book Madhurya Kadambini, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti commenting on this verse, he indicates that this refers to when the Raganuga sadhakas neglect some limbs which a Vaidhi sadhaka is expected to perform, even knowingly. It's not that they don't know that these limbs need to be practiced. They know it, but they see that it is not very favorable for their own, for cultivating their own mood, then they may neglect it. Such a neglect is not considered as an offense. Another verse he quotes from Uddhava Gita, Krishna speaking to Uddhava, Nahi angopakrame dvamsho madharmasya uddhavanvapi maya vyavasita samyak nirgunatvad anasishaha. Where Krishna tells Uddhava, my dear Uddhava, because I have personally established this path of bhakti, so it is actually transcendental and free from any material motivation. Therefore, whenever a devotee practices this path and he makes a mistake by maybe omitting one or two limbs, he does not suffer any loss, Krishna says. So these two verses have been quoted by Srila Rupa Goswami here to indicate that even if a Raganuga sadhaka may neglect one or two limbs which are stipulated for the practice of a Vaidhi sadhaka, they are not at fault. Now, the last theme that we will discuss today is, now that it is mentioned that we can accept some limbs and Raganuga sadhaka can at some times choose not to perform certain limbs, on what basis we decide what to accept and what to reject. So here, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti in his Ragavartma Chandrika, he divides devotional limbs into 5 categories for the Raganuga sadhaka. What are these 5 categories? He tells Bhavamaya, Bhava Sambandhi, Bhava Anukul, Bhava Aviruddha and Bhava Pratikul. So 5 categories of limbs have been mentioned here. Bhava Maya means things composed of one's own bhava. Whatever rasa one may be in, or whatever rasa one may be aspiring for, the pastimes related to that particular limb or the activities related to that particular limb are very favorable. Second is bhava sambandhi. Bhava sambandhi means those related to one's bhava. We will see little more in detail these things. Bhava anukul means those limbs which are favorable to one's bhava. Bhava aviruddha means those limbs which are not necessarily incompatible with one's bhava. And bhava pratikul means those limbs which are opposed to one's bhava. So in this way he has divided them into 5 categories. So what are these? First we will try to understand what is this bhava maya. Bhava maya means, let's say if someone is in Sakyaras, then hearing those pastimes of Krishna along with his friends in Vrindavan, this is an activity which is directly nourishing their mood. So this is called as bhavamaya. These activities are most recommended for them. Hearing pastimes of Krishna in Vrindavan, where he is performing those pastimes with those associates whose mood this Raganuga Sadhaka is trying to cultivate. So these are the most recommended activities for them. Then comes the second, which is called as bhava sambandhi. Bhava sambandhi means those related to one's bhava. So this refers to primarily to the 5 most potent limbs. As we remember, of the 64 limbs, the last 5 limbs were attachment to serving the lotus feet of deity, Shri Murter Angri Sevane Preeti, relishing Bhagavatam, Bhagavata Artha Aswadaha. Third, association with like-minded affectionate devotees, Sajatiya Ashe Snigde Sadhu Sanga Swatovare. And fourth is chanting the name of the Lord, Shri Harinama Sankirtanam. And fifth is Mathura Vas, residing in Mathura. So these 5 limbs are bhava sambandhi, next most important limbs after bhavamaya. Most nourishing are when they hear pastimes related to their own bhava, or even activities. For example, if a person practicing in Madhurya Rasa, who is aspiring for Madhurya Rasa, he may string garlands for the Lord, or he may cook for the Lord. These are activities which are very favorable for directly connected to that particular mood. Bhava maya. And bhava anukul are the 5 most potent limbs, along with the first 4-5 limbs. Adav Guru Padashraya, Shri Krishna Dikshadi Sikshanam, Vishrambena Guror Seva, Sadharma Pracha. These are the things in connected to Guru, accepting one's Guru, surrendering to the Guru, serving him with lot of affection. These limbs, along with the 5 most potent limbs, are bhava sambandhi, which are very complementing. And these limbs have to be practiced. So a Raganuga Sadhaka cannot give up these 5 plus the first 3-4 limbs. Next is bhava anukul. Bhava anukul means favorable to one's bhava. Like for example, like practicing, observing Ekadashi, celebrating Janmashtami, following Kartik Vrata, Bhogadityaga Krishnasya Hetave, giving up sense gratification for the pleasure of Krishna. So these, and worshipping Tulsi Devi, etc. The rest of the first 20 limbs. So these are called as bhava anukul. Okay. So bhava maya is same rasa. Bhava sambandhi is first 4 and last 5. And bhava anukul is the third category, which refers to the rest of the first 20 limbs, which are considered as door to bhakti. Then the fourth category are bhava aviruddha. Bhava aviruddha means those limbs which are not necessarily incompatible. they are not incompatible with one's bhava, but they can be given up also. A neutral limbs, which refers to the rest of the 39 limbs, apart from the first 20 and last 5, in between there are 39 limbs, and those 39 limbs are actually bhava aviruddha. One can choose to practice them, one can choose not to practice them. For example, Nirmalya Anugraha or Nirmalya Sevanam, accepting the Nirmalya of the Supreme Lord, or putting the names of the Lord in one's body. So these are limbs which are absolutely optional. Whether he does, a Raganuga sadhaka does this or does not do these limbs, it does not really matter. They are bhava aviruddha, neutral limbs. And finally, there are some limbs which fall within the category of bhava pratikul, which are opposed to one's bhava. These involve worship of either deities or forms or dhams which are other than that Radha and Krishna in Vrindavan. Like for example, worshipping Dwaraka or the other forms like Lord Ram and Varahadev. These for a Vaidhi sadhaka this is recommended, but for a Raganuga sadhaka it becomes bhava pratikul, which is opposed to his actual mood. So in this way, 5 categories are mentioned. So there are books which describe this, and a Raganuga sadhaka should choose to practice and reject particular limbs based on this particular guidance which is given by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. Bhavamaya, most recommended. Bhava Sambandhi, highly recommended. Indispensable limbs. And then the third is Bhavamaya, and then the third is Bhava Anukul, favorable to one's bhava. Ideally they should practice. Bhava Aviruddha, they can practice or not practice, no problem. Bhava Pratikul, they should not practice. So in this way, very beautifully, for a Raganuga sadhaka also, these instructions are given by our exalted acharyas. Okay. So, but in trying to accept and reject certain limbs, a person who may be qualified for Raganuga sadhana, we are not talking about Vaidhi sadhakas, we are talking about those who are qualified for Raganuga sadhana. There is one additional consideration which he needs to consider, which is he is not an independent sadhaka who is practicing Raganuga sadhana. He is part of a world organization, International Society for Krishna Consciousness. So therefore, one very important aspect which he has to consider is, if he externally rejects certain limbs, what is that impact that it will have on newcomers within the organization. So therefore, before deciding, so one aspiration, one consideration is this Bhavamaya, Bhava Sambandhi, Bhava Anukul, Bhava Aviruddha and Bhava Pratikul. He has to take this consideration in his personal practice while not seen by others. But when he is present in front, when he is publicly practicing, he cannot give up any of the limbs which a Vaidhi sadhaka has to practice, because it will set the wrong example for those who are not qualified for practicing Raganuga sadhana. So therefore, ISKCON devotees must first consider the example such behavior will set for newcomers. Since new devotees are always joining the society, every day new devotees are joining. So therefore, senior devotees should set the perfect example while in public, so that they are not misunderstood. So if leading devotees, even though they may be qualified, if they neglect to perform certain limbs which are meant for Vaidhi sadhakas, it will set a very bad example for new people. So this additional consideration also comes into, also has to be considered while acting in public. Lord Chaitanya's mercy is the most indispensable item for Raganuga Bhakti, and that mercy showers down on those who selflessly serve his mission. So, even Daruka, the driver of, the chariot driver of Krishna, when he would fan Krishna, he would feel ecstatic emotions and tears would start flowing. But considering that, oh, this will act as an obstacle to my serving Krishna, he would control those tears and serve Krishna. Similarly, even though our being qualified, if someone may be qualified for Raganuga sadhana, but he will think, oh, how can my personal practice act as an obstacle to the furthering of the mission of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu? So he will take this as a very paramount consideration, and while publicly practicing, he will not neglect any of the limbs, essential limbs which a Vaidhi sadhaka has to practice. So this is the most important consideration, and when he takes that mission's growth into consideration, and he may subdue his own personal ecstasies, then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mercy will certainly flow to such a person. So therefore, those who are aspiring for Raganuga sadhana bhakti must carefully consider what is favorable for the growth of ISKCON, and accordingly, while practicing publicly, they should take this as a very important consideration. Okay, so we have gone well past the stipulated time. So thank you very much for your patient listening. Tomorrow I promise that I will do a recap of what we have discussed today, and then we will take this subject matter further. So Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srila Rupa Goswami Pad ki jai, Shri Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu ki jai. Hare Krishna.